Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. Subscribe wherever you may listen to Apple, Spotify. You guys know the drill. You're watching this on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave a comment down below. Interact with us. People like the page. Share it with your friends. Greatly appreciate it. The U.S. Open is this week. If you go to thevolume.com and check out the merch store, go low. We got a deal. Use the promo code OPEN23. Get a polo. Get 50% off one of these hats. Can't recommend it enough. Go low merch. Rocking and rolling. Big golf week. Live. PGA Tour. All together again. Should be fascinating. Some football talk. We have some running back news coming up. But first, do you want to go to an event like the U.S. Open, like a baseball game? I see the Yankees are on TV right now. Go to your smartphone right now and go to your app store. Download the official ticketing app of this show, Gametime. Download it right now. Download is the fastest growing ticketing app in America. Promo code JOHN. Do it right now. Promo code John. Get $20 off any pair of tickets. Concerts. You want to go to a concert this summer? You want to go to a comedy show? Anything you want, I got you covered. Gametime. Promo code John. $20 off. Can't recommend them enough. They are awesome. Right before I recorded this Sunday, almost Sunday night, I guess. It's 6:45. I saw Adam Schefter released a statement from Saquon Barkley that said this week is the mandatory minicamp for the New York Giants, and like probably a lot of other teams around the NFL. He said that he will not go. And he's not, quote unquote, holding out because he thinks he should be the highest paid player. He just wants what's fair. And I had to scratch my head. I got to be honest with you, because last year, let's use an example. And listen, let me preface this all by saying these mini camps, OTAs for players like him, like I don't actually think the stuff on the field matters that much. Like he is not going to get even 1% better potentially by practicing or not practicing. But I do think in contract negotiations, by showing up, like I understand or understood last year Deebo Samuel, who literally carried the 49ers 2 years ago to the playoffs, was not a first-round pick, second rounder, just like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. Those guys had not made much money for the level in which they were playing every single year, helping their teams not only get to the playoffs, but Pro Bowl level performance, week in, week out. And they're like, hey, guys, we got to be paid. And Deebo Samuel, when during the mandatory offseason minicamp, and then early on in training camp before his contract was done, showed up. And this was a guy who had not made that much money off the 49ers. Well, Saquon Barkley, I checked. And we'll get into Dalvin Cook here in a second. Let's face it, the entire league, beside like Kyle Shanahan and maybe Belichick, views the running back. Now, the difference is Belichick ain't paying you. Views the running back as not only replaceable, but arguably like not important at all. And definitely not worthy of paying unless you're Jerry Jones or some of these GMs who get fired, right? So Saquon wants to get paid. Not necessarily the highest paid running back of all time, but just a contract extension. And I would understand if Saquon had played like he did last year and was like a 4th-round pick, hadn't made that much money. But when I went to the Google machine and went to his contract, I figured out that he had made $38 million through his 5-year NFL career. Right? Last year, he got his 5th-year option, which was over $7 million. So you add up the 5 years, he made $38 million. Well, if you add up how many games he's played, because over 2019, 2020, and 2021, my man's missed 21 games. So he's played 60 games and made $38 million. You do the math, he's been paid $630,000 a game. And then he's franchise tagged this year and scheduled to make over 10. So if you just factored in this upcoming season and his previous $38 million, he'll have made $48 million. And assuming he plays all the games this year, he will average, over $550,000 a game. So I think a lot of times, and the reaction's going to be when you turn on television and First Take or whatever, and you get the former players, they're all going to get the players back. And listen, I'm not against Saquon Barkley here, but let's not act in a lot of situations when I get a late round pick or even just a non-first round pick, you have not made very much money. So I understand, unless you're a quarterback and you can get some like ads on television. A lot of these guys in the middle rounds, second, third round even, have made $2 million max over a period of time. And when they've played like all pros, when they've played like pro bowlers, they have a legit gripe. But Saquon Barkley has been paid a fucking premium by the New York Giants. When this contract is over at the end of the year, he'll have averaged $8 million a year through a 6-year career. And this is a position that we all laugh at across the league of like, you cannot pay. I mean, they just cut Dalvin Cook. It's like, we're not paying you $14 million a year, even if you are a productive player. And he gave us 10 touchdowns last year and ran for over 1,000 yards. Get out of the building. You are not worth that. If he played tight end or he played wide receiver, he would still be on the team. But because he plays running back, see you later. Well, I look at Saquon Barkley, a guy who has major injury concerns, who, has some flaws in his game, not a great pass protector, and who has not been underpaid. So I think the easiest thing to do in this situation, and I would say the way the media typically leans, and definitely the former players, it's always the team's fault. The team is always fucking the player. To me, it seems like the New York Giants have been pretty good business partners, and Saquon has been properly paid. Now, I don't expect him to show up to minicamp and hop in the huddle and take reps, but I do think it'd be pretty easy just to show up. Like, wouldn't that be negotiating in good faith when they have paid you a boatload of money, when they have stood by your side, right? You'd be like, well, I've produced. Well, yeah, kind of. You've been missing in action a lot too. So I view, if anything, this one, like, we've seen time and time again, TJ Watt, hold in. Deebo Samuel, hold in. Like, I think that's kind of the move, especially, and those guys, TJ Watt was a late first-round pick. Deebo Samuel was like the 35th, 36th overall draft pick. This guy was the number 2 overall pick. Think about that. Nick Bosa needs a new contract right now. You know what he did? He was just a training camp or mini camp last week. Nick Bosa, defensive player of the fucking year, was there, high-fiving everyone, hanging out. Like, I'm not saying Saquon's the bad guy, but the Giants definitely are not in this situation. And speaking of running backs, I completely understand why the Minnesota Vikings, from in a vacuum, from a business perspective, go, we are not paying Dalvin Cook over $14 million a year this season. We do not think he's worth it. Any Vikings fan that's have read some of these, analytical articles, I read a stat today, I think like his runs over 12 yards, he was near the lowest in the league. He's not an explosive player anymore. And he's a player that, like, the trend line would say is pointing down, even though he's still pretty productive for the position. And from just a salary cap standpoint, like, he's not worthy of the number, even though you don't necessarily have anyone else to play at that number. It's not like there's another guy out there that you can, put into that slot. And it's not just the Minnesota Vikings that are telling you that. He was on the block from the moment the season ends. They would have traded him to anyone starting in late February, early March, all the way through the day he was cut. Nobody wanted him. The rest of the league, for that number, said, under no circumstances are we paying you. So from just a business standpoint, totally understandable. But from a football standpoint, there's a reason a lot of people are shorting the Minnesota Vikings this year, right? They had a historic win-loss percentage in the one possession or one score games, right? They basically won them all. They had some of the craziest games you'll ever see. Indianapolis Colts, Buffalo Bills. I mean, honestly, they had 2 games last year that are 2 of the craziest wins of like the last decade. And listen, they had a very, very productive offense. Quarterback threw a lot of touchdowns, arguably the best or second best wide receiver in the league. But here's the thing. They got rid of not just Dalvin Cook, but Adam Thielen for financial reasons. Well, I just Googled their stat sheet last year. Dalvin ran for 8 touchdowns. He caught 2 more. So that's 10 touchdowns. And Adam Thielen caught 6. So that is 16 touchdowns. Now, they think that, Madison, the Boise State running back, even though, he's been in the NFL for a while, can take a lot more of those carries, even though he's never been the true bell cow guy, start to finish, like Dalvin Cook. And Jordan Addison at pick, whatever, in the early 20s, can be what Thielen was for a lot cheaper price. Well, in theory, that all makes sense, right? Just like, All of you guys listening that are in college right now, a lot of things make a lot of sense in theory. A lot of supply demand charts, a lot of this is how you make a sales. When you fucking walk into the business and you walk into the guy you're trying to sell, all that shit goes out the window. You either close it or you don't. So Jordan Addison, like the guy. A lot of hype on this guy over the last 18 months, right? All we've been here, Jordan Addison. Can you do what Adam think? Can you get the Minnesota Vikings 6 touchdowns? Jordan Madison and the other running backs, like, can you contribute 10 touchdowns? Because those scores, right, those 16 scores obviously were an enormous reason that this team was, division champ, that won all those one-score games. So from a business standpoint, big picture, totally get it. But actually executing it on the field now and using those people that take over for, quote unquote, stalwarts of your offense, right there with Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins over the last 4 or 5 years, it's going to be fascinating to see. And this is the type of stuff young GMs try to put their stamp on the team, as they should, right? But this is what you get judged on. You don't get judged on The Athletic writing articles about how smart you are. The Wall Street Journal writing about how unique your background is. You get judged on your transactions, who you draft, who you cut, who you trade for, who you add, who you remove, and how everyone plays in that spectrum. So a lot of people in the media, especially, really like this GM because of his background. It is pretty fascinating. I've heard good things from the people that work with him for the 49ers. You start making some of these moves, we're going to judge you because I know those guys can play, and I know those guys could come through, even if both their arrows are pointing down. And I'm not saying they should have kept them. My point is, you get judged on their replacements, and you get judged on how you play once they're gone because you think you can do better for cheaper money. We're about to find out. And last but not least, Hopkins been making the rounds. He went to the Tennessee Titans. I think Dalvin Cook falls under this too, because I saw Pelissaro, who's tied in with Minnesota, who would know, his representation. Like, Dalvin Cook doesn't plan on playing for like $4 million. And Hopkins wants a big money contract. You guys, no one would trade for your previous contracts. Not a soul in the NFL. Every general manager was called multiple times. Like, you sure you're not interested? Like, are you sure you're sure? Like, we'll add like a 4th-round pick as well if you take this guy off our hands. And every single one hung up the phone. Every single one. Now, I understand those guys, looking at themselves in the mirror, like, I'm still a big-time player. I can still dominate. Look at some of these other guys making money. These GMs do not care about that. You just saw, Deshaun Watson got $230 million, and that was with the quarterbacks. Like, no one else is getting this. Lamar, you won an MVP. Jalen, you just dominated in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. You're not sniffing that much guaranteed money. And what happened? That came to fruition. So it's going to be very fascinating. My recommendation, especially to Hopkins, a little different for the running back. Now, he's already been paid a lot of money. So was Hopkins. But to me, Hopkins has a better chance waiting it out till camp and just hoping a really good team loses a guy for injury. And then you get some, I would say leverage. To me, even if there's an injury with Dalvin Cook, like, I don't think, now we'll sign Dalvin Cook for $12 million. That is not happening. That does have potential to happen with Hopkins just because, a team that feels they're a player away loses a wide receiver in training camp. I think both these guys, but especially Dalvin Cook, to me, he's got the Buffalo Bills written all over him. A team that needs a physical running game. I know Eckler, the Chargers. I mean, give me a team with a star quarterback to have just a running back. Now, I got to get him for the right price, but he makes sense a lot of different places. He can catch the ball. Pretty scheme specific. To me, he's that one cut kind of zone runner in my mind. Where Hopkins, he's kind of an outlier player because he's never been able to run. He's open no matter what because his catching radius, his contested catches. Now, he's tweeting up a storm, like talking shit to all the people who act like he can't play. I don't think the NFL GMs and personnel people and coaches think he can't play, but they probably think there is like an outsized view of himself for the way they view him. Like, good player, you can play for our team, but you're not a $15 million player. And this is where it gets in this weird spot right now. Because you go, well, fucking Odell Beckham just got $15 million. And be like, I know, that's crazy. Ravens are morons, right? But that's not my problem. And that's kind of where both these guys, in little different situations, because the running back position makes less than the wide receiver position, kind of find themselves in. So it's going to be fascinating. I would expect both these guys kind of let it play out for a little bit. What's the rush in signing over the summer?